Доброго дня, шановні.
Good afternoon, dear ladies and gentlemen. Ukraine Crisis Media Center continues its working day, and we greet everyone who joined us here and online. The topic of the next briefing is national resilience, what Ukraine may learn from NATO. Sergei Sidorenko is the moderator of this discussion. He is the editor of Европейская Правда news outlet. Greetings to those who hear us here and online. Before starting discussion, I would like to ask Dmitri Teperik to speak about the essence of the project, about the idea that we discuss, and then we will shift to our speakers and to our audience, and we are going to speak about resilience of Ukraine. Dmitri, you are given the floor. Good afternoon. Greetings from Estonia, from Tallinn.
All the speakers and participants to our panel discussion on resilience and NATO. Well, indeed, our program Resilient Ukraine is supported by the Estonian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and implemented by a think tank, International Center for Defense and Security. And the program has been active since 2016, so it's already 5 years of our various interactive activities in Ukraine and actually being implemented together with Ukrainian experts. And our main goal actually is to address the issues of national resilience at various levels, at national level, at regional and local levels in Ukraine, and basically to develop standards for measurement and improving different components of resilience. And, as we know, NATO has resilience its agenda as well, so that's the goal today to address this topic. Thank you. Дякую.
Thank you, Dmitry. We will have a combined discussion. We will speak in English and Ukrainian, and I will also speak 12 languages during this discussion. First, we will speak each of us in the hall, and those who speak with us remotely, and then maybe we will have some questions, some discussions concerning the topics that were raised by the speakers. If you have questions, please give signals to us. We may also get questions from remote viewers. And please inform me about this in order to regulate our timeline properly, in order to provide the floor to all of us. First, we
in Ukraine, Vineta, Kleine, as everyone do understand that any issues that are related to security or resilience and so on are somehow related to NATO here in Ukraine. It is very interesting to see and to hear what NATO thinks of Ukrainian developments in this sphere and of directions Ukraine should take in this regard. So, Vineta.
Thank you, Sergei. Good morning, dear colleagues. And first of all, I would like to thank SUMI Research Center for Regional Security, as well as the Estonian International Center for Defense and Security, for inviting me to take part at this event and to speak on building resilience. And I would like to also use this moment and comment on the excellent cooperation between the NATO Information and Documentation Center in Ukraine and the SUMI Research Center and the SUMI State University. And it's my true pleasure to be part of this debate and discuss this indeed very important topic on resilience. Resilience is a society's ability to resist and recover easily and quickly from a major shock or a crisis. And it is an essential basis for credible deterrence and defense. And that's why at the Warsaw NATO summit in 2016, Allied leaders committed to enhancing resilience. And this commitment is based on the understanding and on the recognition that the international environment, the strategic environment has changed, and that we now face a broader and a continually expanding range of both military and non-military security challenges. And let me quote at this point the Secretary General, who has said that having a strong military is fundamental to our security. But our military cannot be strong if our societies are weak. So our first line of defense must be strong societies, able to prevent, endure, adapt, and bounce back from whatever happens. And in fact, resilience is in NATO's DNA. And I believe that, in my view, it perfectly encapsulates NATO's approach to resilience. The global COVID-19 pandemic is also testing our resilience, and therefore at the meeting of NATO defense ministers in October last year, allies also agreed to update NATO's guidelines for national resilience based on lessons learned. And these guidelines ensure that we have robust supply chains and fewer vulnerabilities in our strategic industries and critical infrastructure. And increasingly, our societies doesn't just rely on strong militaries. The human factor actually is central to establishing effective national resilience at the societal level. Therefore, we need strong and resilient societies. Resilience is a collective effort, and it is our first line of defense. And now let me turn to Ukraine in this context. We commend Ukraine's efforts to develop a national resilience system, and NATO allies are committed to supporting Ukraine in its efforts to enhance and strengthen resilience using various supporting mechanisms and platforms. And through various trust funds and programs, NATO allies have committed over 40 million euros in areas such as command and control, logistics and standardization. NATO also continues to support Ukraine in countering explosive devices and medical rehabilitation. And we have also been supporting Ukraine in enhancing resistance in area of strategic communications and countering hostile propaganda. The established NATO-Ukraine platform on countering hybrid warfare strengthens Ukraine's resilience in against hybrid warfare. And within the platform, we promote joint projects between allies and Ukraine in such areas as crisis management, strategic communications, and building resilience. And this year we plan to conduct the tabletop exercise, Coherent Resilience, which is focused on institutional resilience and interagency cooperation. Furthermore, NATO also assists Ukraine's state emergency service by building capacity and capabilities in civil protection and humanitarian assistance. And we have also increased our support in the Black Sea region with more port visits, with exercises and sharing information. These are just a few examples, and every day NATO advisors work with ministries in Ukraine to address shared objectives and implement important defense and security reforms. And I will again repeat myself by stating that the human factor is central to establishing effective national resilience. The ongoing pandemic has also demonstrated the importance of civil societies in national preparedness and national responses, including in areas such as effective public messaging about government responses and ensuring access to accurate, timely, and correct information to counter disinformation. Now a few words about Ukraine's EOP status, or Enhanced Opportunities Partner status. In June last year, the North Atlantic Council granted Ukraine the EOP status as a recognition of Ukraine's significant contributions to NATO operations, exercises, and NATO response force. And as an enhanced opportunities partner, Ukraine will benefit from tailor-made opportunities to help sustain these contributions. And this includes enhanced access to interoperability programs and exercises. It's also about more information sharing and including lessons learned. And in this context, NATO staff are engaging with Ukrainian counterparts to on practical initiatives and practical cooperation initiatives. And this year we will work jointly together with Ukraine to operationalize the EOP with substantive activities that will help further enhance our interoperability. And at the end, I would like to underline that resilience requires a long-term effort. It requires strategic thinking, it requires strategic planning, it requires effective coordination, allocation of sufficient funding, sufficient resources, adaptability, and sustainability. And as I already said, building state capacity includes nurturing the trust of citizens in state institutions and in their government. And a resilient society is aware of its role in challenging situations and in challenging times. And in the annual national program of Ukraine, Ukraine's government underlines its objective to strengthen national resilience and effectively prevent and counter destabilizing factors. Also, Ukraine's new national security strategy puts human security front and center. And it builds upon resilience as one of the three main pillars of the national security policy, which applies both to institutions and society. NATO stands and will continue to stand by Ukraine in its efforts to ensure the security and peace in the country. And we will continue to support Ukraine with our advice and with new possibilities to support Ukraine. And with this, I will end my remarks. Thank you.
Дуже дякую, Vineta.
Thank you, Vineta. Now, I would like to give the floor to Ms. Maryana Bezugla, Are you here? Yes. Maryana, would you please comment what the state has to do to strengthen resilience? Perhaps we should focus not only on building trust between the state and citizens, but also on other things. And I would ask you to set or to rank priorities, better to say. I would like to say that resilience is quite broad meaning, quite broad notion, and by the way, we do not have proper translation of it into Ukrainian. Nevertheless, we have new law on demining activity, and currently we are working on the secondary legislation to it. Resilience also deals with the security services of Ukraine. Quite recently, the whole package of the legislation about intelligence came into force, and quite recently again, the bill about the security service of Ukraine had passed the first reading. This would allow us to prevent and block both internal and external threats. And of course, I would like to mention continuous interaction between the parliament and the government, especially in the context of Euro-Atlantic integration. We have a very close cooperation with the Vice Prime Minister's office, also the area and the field of defense planning. Here, quite often, we face the issue of distribution or delineation of powers between the Ministry of Defense, the General Staff, and the Parliamentary Supervision. Quite recently, we discussed the bill about our coherent response to the major threats which may rise in front of the country, and we had a joint meeting with the ministries discussing how each ministry can respond in the case of threat. Of course, we have the general staff and the major coordinator. But, for example, the Ministry of Health could be and should be able to respond and report immediately what is their bed's capacity in our hospitals, for example, in urgently respond. What are our capacities in terms of beds in hospitals? This was my brief presentation about that legislation, which was passed quite recently, which is now in the pipeline, so to say. And as for the resilience in general, the more centralized and the more rigid decision-making system we have, the weaker is resilience. This is well-known dependence, and that is, we need the matrix type system of management and command in the army, in troop and military forces. Also, we should clearly understand that resilience also includes proper work and preparedness of ministries, of the parliament, and And especially, I would like to point out to the role of parliamentary supervision. Currently, our committee of the national security, where I am a member, works closely with the resilience in general of Ukrainian security and military forces, and I tried to describe that in more detail. Unfortunately, now there is only a short interval between the parliamentary sessions. I would not stay long with you. Maryana, would you please describe in more detail those primary or the most important pieces of legislation that the parliament has to pass immediately, so to say. As I tried to explain, the resilience in general is continuously in mind of our committee, and keeping that in mind, currently we are finalizing the law on the security service of Ukraine, and we are very actively working on the distribution of responsibilities between the ministries involved into defense and security issues and the parliament. Also, I would like to mention the law on the territorial defense, which is also big importance for resilience. Also, the issues of military planning requires some minor amendments. Thank you so much. Do we have Ms. Bobrovska with us? Yes, Solomiya is here. Happy to see you. Solomiya, could you please add something from the lawmaker's point of view? For example, your fight against disinformation, which you also believe important for resilience. I would like to come back slightly to what Maryana had said about the security and defense sector. Of course, during the last 7 years, we had been dealing very closely with the primary issues, and we need to clarify the issues about the parliamentary supervision, the public procurements in the area of defense and securities. Of course, we have to tackle loopholes for corruption in course of security procurement in the security sector. In sector, this should be brought in coherence, in harmony with what is what are the standards in NATO countries. When we come back to the resilience issues, I would mention economic policy and cultural policy, because cultural policy, although it may sound surprising, but it is very closely interrelated with the capacity to defend ourselves. When we recollect the law about media, we have two competitive versions of that law, and that law may contain the checks and balances which may prevent some threats in terms of hybrid war from Russian Federation. I would not focus on the latest decrees of the president based on National Security and Defense Council decision, and I believe that it was issued a bit late. And unfortunately, for example, we have now the Shari's party broadly represented in crucial regions for the security of Ukraine. I mean, Odessa and Mykolaiv regions, where the pro-Russian narrative exist. Actually, that pro-Russian narratives had migrated here into the south of Ukraine from the east of Ukraine after 2013. I believe that suspension of the activities of that party of Shari should be done immediately. Also, I would like to point out to the international relations connected with this security areas. For example, Ukraine's delegation in the OSCE, Ukrainian position there is quite weak, and we pay no attention on that. And also Ukrainian delegation in the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. It is also its behavior is manifestation of its weak position. That is what I mean under strengthening international relations or diplomacy. Also, I would like to mention the Crimean Platform, which had to be established long ago, immediately upon occupation of Crimea. Immediately, we had to create the Crimean government in exile and to strengthen security issues, and this is our mission. In 2017, the Russian Federation had established a similar platform, which looks like non-governmental, but actually it is widely supported by the government. This platform is called the Friends of Crimea, and these agencies which comprise this organization, or platform, they are cheered by famous and prominent or influential Russian government officials, and among those people are the former Minister of Economy of Russian Federation and Mr. Nicolas Sarkozy. So that's the agenda about Ukraine's situation with Eastern territories and Crimea is well known, but nevertheless, the Russian Federation continues to act as there is nothing done actually in this area. Also, I would like to mention the religious issues. Although Ukraine is a secular state, but according to Ukrainian legislation, the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of Moscow Patriarchy should be properly named the Russian Orthodox Church in Ukraine, and this submission still rests in the authorities, and this negatively influences the official transfer of Orthodox communities from one patriarchy to another, that is from Moscow Patriarchy to Ukraine, to the Orthodox Church of Ukraine. That is coming back to what we need in the issues of resilience. We need to create the battalions of territorial defense. The law was passed, but this would not allow us to implement it in the way it was done in Estonia, for example, because it is necessary to legalize the armed defense, the right for arms defense, and to allow the free circulation of short barrel weapon. These were my major ideas. I also continue to work on Ukraine's report as for 2019, so I could assure you that the Ukrainian Parliament will do a job. Just in 20 seconds, what our work aimed at the soft resilience and our ban over the activities of some parties would adversely impact our resilience. I do not see any threat here because we simply banned that things which were financed by the aggressor state and actually tried to prevent the soft occupation of the state. This is our counteraction to propaganda.
You also to address this topic, if you have any thoughts about progress that the West have got in accepting Ukrainian actions of limiting propaganda, because we had the chance to see quite a tough reaction of our Western partners in 2014-15 when these propaganda sources were banned. I mean Russian sources, and we have different reactions. We have support by Estonia as well. When we have banned these 3 TV channels that also disperse propaganda. What was the reason? And also, in your address, I would ask you to comment the idea of Ukrainian cooperation with Cybersecurity Center, which is located in Tallinn.
Дуже дякую. Доброго дня. Thank you for the question. Estonia actually supported the Ukrainian move on putting sanctions on certain oligarchs and closing down the TV stations, because we totally support Ukraine's free will possibility to defend itself. We have felt it in Estonia since we got our independence back. I will give you a quick short example. I was a teenager when we got independence back, and my school was almost 10 kilometers from my home. When we got our freedom back, Russia shut down the petrol and oil deliveries to Estonia. And I was walking to school and thinking, why the hell someone wants to punish me for my wish to be free? So we totally understand Ukraine in this situation you are at the moment. I think what you are doing, and you are doing according to your laws, is absolutely supported by us. Just maybe advice from the side is that share the information, give as quickly as possible maximum information, and using different channels. Official channels in the meaning of public statements, but also intelligence services. Those who are collecting information, you have partners here, you have partners in the capitals. Share the information, and all will understand you better and support maybe quicker. So you will not lose this critical time slot or gap, actually, which sometimes slows down the support. Let's, I think, commented the first question. Help me with the second question. What?
Cybersecurity center in Tallinn.
Well, as we have a feeling that if, and attitude in Estonia, that if you are good in something, don't be shy about that. So we are rather good about cyber, and we are really happy to have a NATO Center of Excellence in Tallinn as well. And we are glad we supported, brought it to Tallinn, and now it's up and running. And there are possibilities for non-NATO partners also to join that. I know the Ukraine wants to come on board. It has to be agreed by all the partners already working there. So the process takes time, but I'm pretty sure you will go along that. And well, I know that bilaterally different states are working closely with Ukraine already. So welcome to the club. Just takes time a little bit.
Yeah, and of course your ideas about resilience of Ukraine, if you have some general suggestions.
Yeah, well, I would highlight maybe 4 points. What already have been said before me. Resilience starts from each and every one of us. So what I explained you, I got this feeling already when I was a teenager walking to school 10 kilometers. We have to deal and train the critical thinking of the individuals. In Estonia, we have in school programs actually concrete subjects, maybe more concretely connected with cyberbullying, but what it is, it's also understanding that someone wants to spread about fake news about you. So we train school children also to be source critical. It's related to cyber hygiene. It's the part of the resilience as well. The second one is responsibility of the media. Free, competent, and independent media. I think the free channels which were closed down in Ukraine didn't apply for these 3 points actually. So journalists must understand the content they are writing about, present it accurately and impartially. So we have provided trainings, Estonia has provided trainings for journalists in Ukraine, especially from the regions, because, well, mainly the attention focusing maybe sometimes too much to Kiev, but regional media outlets very important. responsibility of the government as the third point, which has to set the framework, what we already heard from online. So this is absolutely important to guarantee the well-being of the citizens through the rule of law. That's the part of the resilience. And the fourth one is the international cooperations. That's why we are sitting today here. We have to stress you that you're not alone. We are here. Sometimes you are overwhelmed with your work and you think that you are facing the threat alone, Ukraine versus Russia. No, that's not like that. We are in majority. We are with you, actually. So these are the four principles, main bullets, I think I wanted to highlight at the moment.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Олексію, ми вже почули...
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Olexiy, we have heard about the parliamentary plans about what Ukraine has to do. I would like to know position of the governmental office. What are your top priorities and what issues you plan to focus in first turn? Thank you for this question. I would like to start from the statement that today the word resilience raises no question among government officials. I may recollect easily that some 3 years ago the notion resilience had not existed and there were no actually the proper Ukrainian word for it because it could be translated as stikist or opernist, that is, with different words with different connotations. Eventually we came to conclusion that the word which is used now, it comprises all the important aspects which we mean behind the resilience. It is not only the capacity to resist, but it is also the ability to plan, to have strategy, policies, and resources. Why resilience? Back at the foundation of the NATO in North Atlantic Treaty, all the member countries stated that each member country had to develop individual and collective security in order to be able to be resilient in case of armed attack, in case of armed military conflict. And this principle today is fully supported by Ukraine, and we wish to achieve that highest standard of NATO. Why NATO? Because it is one of the most efficient and the most successful military alliance, and we want to become an element of collective security and to call Estonia not only our partner but an ally. When we discuss instruments and laws which promote resilience or contribute to resilience in Ukraine, these are like bricks in our firewall of resilience, but there are some nuances. Thanks God, now we have a very good law on national security, and Article 46 clearly states what the national resilience is, but at the general legislative initiative level, we do not have this notion broadly used. For example, we lack the law on critical infrastructure, and I would draw attention of my friends from the parliament to this item. Some 5 years ago, NATO formulated several basic requirements how each member country has to build up its security and defense system. That basic requirements were based on the research, on previous research. So one of the major requirements is an ability of a country to preserve effective governance in case of attack on its capacity to preserve resources, ability to preserve civil communication channels, etc. That's why we had started our cooperation with NATO partners on implementation of that requirements, and started with the civilian aspects of that requirement, so to say. We held several trainings, planning conferences. In 2017, we approached to the NATO countries and asked them their support to build up the system of high visibility events held jointly by several crucial agencies. At that time, we had strong cooperation with Poland, and they helped us very much. In 2014, when the threat from the east came and it threatened the nuclear infrastructure of Ukraine, we also approached our NATO partners and invited their experts in specific areas to visit Ukraine and provide a piece of advice. In 2017, we submitted one more kind request about resilience, and in 2019 we had started this cooperation, and Vice Prime Minister on European and Euro-Atlantic integration chairs now this work. And in Kyiv, we also cooperate at the interagency level. For us, by the way, the interagency cooperation remains an issue, because quite often we find out that there is a lack of such interagency cooperation. And also, as Ms. Vineta mentioned, we plan to organize this year joint training, which will be called Coherent Resilience. They are aimed at building up interagency and agency private response in case of attacks in the area of the Black Sea. And in my opinion, resilience, here I'm coming back to what Ms. Vineta said, this is about trust between the society and the authorities. Resilience had to become the everyday business, so to say. And eventually, I would like to mention that the coronavirus pandemic had demonstrated clearly that resilience is of primarily importance. And it seems to me that neither country in the world may say that they were sufficiently resilient to tackle the problem. Thank you, Olexiy. We have representatives of our organizers. Perhaps Dmitri would like to add something. Also, we have Mykola Nazarov with us. Now, would you please comment what this very project may contribute to the resilience of Ukraine? Dmitri, the floor is yours.
To basically the relevance of resilience to NATO and Ukraine through the prism of modern and emerging threats, I just would like to list several society-related threats from the global risk report. And I think they are actually very relevant, not just on the global scale, but also to Ukraine and to my country, Estonia, as well. Well, 5 of them are very much related to society and might be revealed at community level. First is cybersecurity failure, then it's digital inequality, youth disillusionment, social cohesion erosion, and mental health deterioration. And in the framework of our program, we analyzed various vulnerabilities in Ukraine's regions, and what we found, actually, there is a big gap related to resilience skills among professionals at regional and local authorities, in the journalist community, but also among representatives of civil societies. And please don't get me wrong, talking about vulnerabilities and gaps, it's not kind of critics against the Ukrainian government or local authorities. No, actually, we would like to help them to make this homework for a more swifter integration into NATO, because knowing your vulnerabilities help you to decrease different effects of polarization and fragmentation at the regional level. And the member of parliaments actually referred to different challenges in southeastern Ukraine, and actually that's the region we are focusing right now in our analytical work, and also to counteract malicious disinformation campaigns there, but also to understand the deep roots of social psychological turbulences there. And why NATO is relevant, as previous speaker already mentioned, there are some baselines for resilience, and one of them actually is very much related to civil communication systems, and that's the reason why our program is focusing on various aspects of information security, digital security, cognitive security, and communication security. So we tackle all these aspects in one. And based on our results, we are convinced that national resilience is very much related to credible institutions, and that's trust come in, but also very much relevant to enduring communities. And speaking about enduring communities, I should emphasize again very much regional and local level, because you cannot project resilience from the capital. So resilience actually should be nurtured on local and regional level as a grassroots initiative, again in trustful cooperation and dialogue between authorities and civil societies. And in a nutshell, to describe what we are doing in the regions, there are several tracks. One of them is analytical track, and I already described several results from previous years, and in months we are going to publish a big report on that. And the reason for it is to increase situational awareness about existing vulnerabilities and emerging threats there. But the second track, I think, is even more important than the previous one. It is related to outreach activities in southeastern Ukraine. So it's not just classical trainings, but it's rather interdisciplinary, cross-sectoral exercises with different representatives from civil sector, municipalities, journalists, academia. So again, to advocate interdisciplinary approach to building resilience. And for that reason, I think a good colleague of mine, Dr. Nazarov from SUME, could add more how regional.
Дмитро, немає зв'язку. Звук насправді доволі поганий був. Я так розумію, що є сенс перемкнутися на Миколу.
Maybe we will go to Mykola, because we are speaking about this issue. Several people mentioned, and it is logic, that we should increase resilience at a local level in the regions. What actions should be implemented? What are your ideas about this? I greet the audience in Sumy. Do you hear me? Yes. I would like to continue the idea of Dmitri. I got acquainted with the project in Tallinn, Resilient Ukraine project, and we, together with our colleagues, came to conclusion that this idea of resilience, the concept of resilience, is the instrument that may approximate Ukraine to implementation of NATO standards. Resilience is important. It is important to understand what the indicators of resilience and what should we develop. And we should develop these indicators, and we should reach criteria for membership. If we are speaking about the level of support for NATO in the regions, I met the data. I have seen the data. During this pandemic year, we lost some support. In 2020, there was maximum support, close cooperation with NATO. 45% of people supported more close cooperation with NATO. And before this, we have 52%. But this is not a tragedy, because a lot happened in this year. This was pandemic that has some psychological pressure. Second, disinformation campaigns connected with pandemic directed against NATO and many other problems. They decreased the level of support of NATO in the regions in 2020. This means that we should work even more in order to increase these indicators and to move forward. First of all, it is worth noting, as it was previously, the least level of support is in the east and in the south. This is about 25%. The focus should be on these regions. And the project I've mentioned, and our center also is involved in this. We focus on southern and eastern regions of Ukraine, and also Sumy Oblast also is included in the region. We have such a situation when the topic of NATO is lost among other topics. And we should understand this. We feel this. This is the problem of tariffs, pandemic, bills. So there is no enough information about NATO. We should hear about NATO. And I would like to thank the NATO Center of Information and Documentation that really helps us, and together in Sumy Oblast and in the southern and eastern regions, we try to provide more information about Alliance and about concrete help that is provided from NATO to Ukraine. I would like to say the main thing. We should inform society in Ukraine by different creative methods, some maybe scientific methods, sports events or creative events, not just through NATO as organization, but there should be topics raised such as resilience in order to open the doors for this topic. And based on Sumy State University, we joined the southern and eastern regions. We hold events, scientific and creative ones that are connected with NATO, and they have the aim to popularize Alliance, its ideas, values, and importance. Also, I would like to make some announcements. In May this year, we plan, together with the International Center of Defense and Security that is headed by Dmitri, we will hold in Sumy University a 2-day seminar on resilience. We will have 15 international speakers, and there will be diplomats from different countries, and also we will invite experts, young specialists, journalists from southern and eastern oblasts. This will be in May, and in April 2021 we will have resilience talks, and in Sumy we will invite first of all representatives of southern and eastern regions of Ukraine, and together with leading speakers, we are going to speak about resilience, NATO, how they are related, why it is important to work on resilience if we want to approximate NATO to the maximum. So I would like to sum up. We believe that resilience is one of the key instruments of modernization of our country and society. And this is the indicator we should work on in order to gain criteria and to become the NATO member. Thank you very much for your attention, and we have time for some questions. Thank you. Do you have questions? We have several journalists. If you would like to ask something, I would give you the floor. Okay. Good afternoon. Andrei Alexandrovich, head of the department at the Ministry of Defense. If we speak about the importance of this topic, taking into account the security situation, the military forces, they deal a lot with strategic communications. And I have a question to Vineta. How can we deepen the cooperation among Alliance and the forces of Ukraine concerning strategic communications if we are speaking about enhanced opportunities program?
Thank you for the question. NATO is supporting Ukraine's institutions regarding enhancing and building and strengthening strategic communications capabilities, because it's very important that it's also a cross-governmental duty to speak in one voice, because if we speak in one voice, it means that we are stronger. So, and if we communicate strategically our message, if government communicates strategically its messages to society, to the public, and if it's done in one voice, so I think it's sort of strategic strategic importance. That's why NATO Information Documentation Center supports our partners, our counterparts in strengthening and developing strategic communications capabilities. And we also work with various institutions, including Ukraine's armed forces in this area, and we will continue our work in this area. Thank you.
Я би попросив Олексія. Олексій, якщо можна, також по цій тематиці з питань.
Olexiy, you may also add about strategic communication. Strategic communications, this is the element of resilience. We should remind ourselves that about 2015, roadmap was signed on strategic communication, and it was signed by Secretary General of NATO and the head of National Defense and Security Council. So we may speak about resilience, about roadmap, but we should look at opportunities of our armed forces, because NATO is open and ready. We should stimulate them with our wish. I would answer like this on to this question. So we may do this in Kiev, together with the Center of Information Documentation, and through Brussels, with DPP, Public Diplomacy Division, PDD. So there are many different formats, and we should come up with initiatives, we should hold forums, and we will help you in this. We are ready. There is also a center in Riga on strategic communication, and it's easy to establish contact with them. They really may come to Kiev and organize a conference, for example, if you have a concept, if you have a vision how to do all this. And you should not limit with the armed forces. Maybe you should include other defense sector institutions. Sikorsky 4L, this is the address. You may come up with initiatives. You should promote this issue. I would like to ask Neta, and you spoke before the parliament. You spoke with the representatives of the parliament. I would like to get your comment about those priorities, these ideas of parliamentarians, and what are the main priorities, and what are the main for Ukraine? Ukraine identifies them, but your opinion is of interest.
Ukrainian MPs. On which of these priorities you see a possibility for NATO to support Ukraine, to provide some assistance? Because in some of them, assistance is already available. And maybe you can highlight key priorities among those indicated by MPs, or to see whether some Ukrainian, let's say, priorities could be somehow corrected.
I would like to repeat again that there are various assistance platforms, programs, and including trust funds and programs which are being used in order to support our Ukrainian counterparts, which are also in place between Ukraine and NATO. And one of them, since I'm also a communicator, and I have been a communicator for quite many years back home. So, and right now we are also, the NATO Information Documentation Center is also focused on strategic communication. So one of the areas, it's strategic communications. It's very important also for Ukraine to be also when we speak with our societies, with the public, that the information we provide, and especially during the pandemic, that it's accurate, that it's timely, and that it's to the point. So it's one of the things. So, and as I already also mentioned, that there are several trust funds which are in place. So in order to help strengthen also Ukraine and increase Ukraine's resilience as command and control, it's also medical rehabilitation, countering explosive device. So also PDP programs. So and building integrity. So these are just a few examples of how NATO is supporting and helping Ukraine. On the other hand, so I would also underline that it's a two-way cooperation, and also NATO learns also from Ukraine, and your lessons learned are also our lessons learned.
Дякую, колеги. У кого ще є запитання з зали, якщо є? Окей, якщо немає, мені ще надходило, я так розумію, що Дмитро...
У вас є ще питання? There were some problems with connection, and I do not know about. So the question about this program concerning resilience, for whom this program, what is this program? Is it for civil society, journalists, or lawyers, or military? Who are these people? Starting 2017, we have this program, Resilient Ukraine, and now we have continuation of this program, and there will be yearly trainings for different target groups, for journalists, for civil society, for bodies of power, in order to increase knowledge concerning resilience. And we focus on cognitive, psychological, and cyber resilience. Also, we will speak about formation of indexes of resilience, and there will be events directed to train and to get information and get understanding from experts, journalists, representatives of power concerning what this index of resilience should be, how to compile it, because we do not have universal standards concerning resilience that may be used in Ukraine. We should clearly understand the components we need to work with. The task of the program, if we are speaking about the scientific component, is that we need to build this resilience index. On the whole, I would like to say that all planned events, educational, scientific events, they will be, the information about them will be presented in Resilient Ukraine website, and people may apply, go through contest and participate in these events. Dmitri, are you with us?
Так, якщо можете додати щось, і я так розумію, що якщо з зали запитань немає...
Yes, I would like to add that actually young generation is a very important target audience in our program, because again, referring to my first intervention, I mentioned among one security threats listed in global risk report is youth disillusionment. So basically, we must work with the next generation in order to foster resilience-related skills and to shape the attitudes about culture of preparedness for various crises in the future. And that is I think quite a big task for us to advocate transformation of their knowledge and their skills, and again to promote kind of coping mechanisms and consequence management strategies, and basically focused attitude for analyzing further crises. And all that track is very much focused on young generation of students and young experts and professionals in Ukraine's regions, involving them into our events and also bringing them to Estonia and showing our experience. But I just would like to highlight that it's not just sharing our experience. All the program is very much based on the understanding that building resilience is mutually enriching and learning exercise. So as we learn from Ukraine very much, I think Ukraine can learn, and Ukrainian society can learn from our experience and experience of other major countries and allies. Thank you.
Дякую. Давайте
Thank you. Whether we have other questions from the audience? I see there is no questions. Would you like to add something? Please, and we'll wrap up. Olexiy. I would like to start my final remarks. I would like to say that there are ideas in the government concerning how to make this resilience beautiful and in a correct way. And we looked at NATO, and we want to create a center of resilience. We do not know what will be the name: coordination center, or the center of excellence, or governmental center, or something else. And this idea was supported by the head of the state, by the leadership of the government at the National Defense and Security Council, and this work is ongoing. And I'm sure that this idea finally will look as an ideal model for Ukraine in modern Ukrainian conditions, including the NATO standards. We will be able to create this resilience through the prism of governmental work and work of society. Second, in order to do all this, as I've said, we need proper laws. Unfortunately, without laws, it is impossible to have proper governmental work, proper work of the state and society. Before starting this work concerning resilience in 2019, based on results of our work with NATO, we decided to create a concept, and this concept was provided by 60 officials, civil servants from several tens of institutions. These are real experts. They worked with the crisis. They know how to counteract risks. And this concept also was studied by the experts from NATO. And the governmental office planned to show this concept and to the government, to the Euro-Atlantic Commission, and based on these results, I believe we should have an event where we would be able to make this concept public and to discuss it in expert community with the NGOs. This is all I want to share. Thank you for your attention.
Olexiy, as far as I understand, the creation of this structure will become only when the resilience will be properly reflected in legislation. I believe that establishment of a structure will vice versa promote establishment of this notion in legislation. I've received in message that from Zoom that Olga Reznikova wishes to connect to Zoom. Can you hear me? I am Reznikova Olga from the National Institute of Strategic Studies. Just a short remark on behalf of our institute. We've been dealing with the building up of national resilience for quite a long period of time, and we would be happy to join your work in any format. On our website, you may find a lot of materials and research which offer some practical recommendations what could be done in Ukraine in terms of resilience. We have many recommendations. We have many documents which we disseminate in the Cabinet of Ministers, in the Presidential Office, etc. One of our latest recommendations is to establish the National Informational Portal where not only the draft bills about resilience or contributing to resilience could be published, and also analytical materials of experts. We are happy to provide our materials to this portal. Also, it might be very useful to post on that portal such projects, materials of such projects as Resilient Ukraine, for example. That is practical these practical recommendations what we suggest to post on the portal. And latest and my last remark. Recently, we published our new analysis as to the national resilience system at the local level. Today, you mentioned that the resilience measures should be taken not only at the level of the capital of the country, at the center, at the level of central government, but also at the level of local governments. Very soon we will disseminate this analytical report among governmental agencies. And as for the national level, we produced our report last year, while this analysis as to the regional resilience was published recently and very soon will be offered for your attention. Thank you very much. Olga, Your Excellencies, the floor is yours.
Just a few words. Estonia, I'm stressing always, Estonia is a compact country, not a small, but compact. So that's why we have to concentrate our resources, and we cooperate with the regions where we see the demand is biggest, the need is biggest, but also where we see our values are matching already the most. And I also often ask my Ukrainian friends to be smart and to ask from us something which really helps you to leap forward. So to make the, not just give us the training, but what really helps you. And then you are doing the jump, and we got inspired and energized, and we are developing together with you. So just to conclude the session, I think, from my side.
Thank you, Ambassador. So, now ми вже наближаємося до часу, коли ми просто
We are approaching to the moment when we'll be obliged to leave the room because of the next scheduled event. Quite a successful discussion was Olexiy even received recommendation to create a portal. We cooperate with the National Institute of Strategic Studies for a while now, and I was very happy to see Olga today once again. And I would like to thank to the National Strategic Institute team on behalf of the Presidential Office. I believe that this will result in a very good outcomes. Thank you.